We spend so much time subconsciously looking at our past. It's like we're wishing and sometimes insisting that it look different. Forgiveness requires acceptance and alignment with a single truth, and here it is. Nothing you or I do in this present moment will ever change what happened back there. It is already done, it is already finished, and it is unchangeable. And the only thing that is worth our time, our energy, and our resources is the desire to move on. And the only person we can help as we attempt to move on is that younger version of ourselves. The 5-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 15, 30, or 55-year-old stuck back there making statements like, I deserved better than that. Why is the world so unfair and awful? I am good, so why can't anyone see it? Why did you leave me? Why doesn't anyone see what I bring to the table? Yeah, we're asking questions all the time about our value, about our goodness, about our capacity to be embraced by others and loved. So how do we help that version of ourselves that is suffering? How do we help them finally let go of those negative thoughts that are destroying them and the many negative and false beliefs that buried in their subconscious mind? How do we help them overcome the many bodily sensations that cause the vagus nerve and the 12 major organs of our body to activate a fear response that then leads eventually to illness and disease? How do we help ourselves end the traumatic responses once and for all? Here's the answer. We move that version of ourselves through a conscious forgiveness process. What does it mean to be conscious? It means to be aware of who we are. We are not our feelings. We are a being. So how do we remember who we are? So let's talk a little bit about what conscious forgiveness looks like. We create an environment that visually says to our brain, I am safe. This is the only way that when we go into a remembering of something that has caused us to become afraid, that the brain will allow us to sustain the contact with that without moving us into a state of being hyper alert, a state of fighting it, a state of shutting down. Once we convince the brain by creating that environment, we enter that safe space and we breathe through it. We relax. We go into a state where we can monitor our breath and monitor the response of the body. And yet again, here we stand and we send a message to the brain, to the heart, and to the gut. And we say, brain, I need you to just observe. And we say, heart, I need you to feel. I need you to release those thoughts and those deep desires that are connected with this moment. And gut, I need you to know that I am safe and that you can tell me the truth. This is when we begin to immerse ourselves in the memory and we connect with that younger version of ourselves. And then we help that younger version. Usually the child self is the one that needs the most help, but we, whatever age it is, we connect with that younger version of ourselves and we look at that moment and we interpret it from an adult perspective, sharing with that individual key pieces of information that is needed to answer 4 questions. Here's the first question. If love had shown up in this moment, what would it have looked like? This answer will be different for every single one of us. This is why there is no standard love language. There's a love language that is unique to you. And every forgiveness is giving you part of a puzzle of how you love and how you want to be loved. But in this particular moment, if love had shown up, what would it have looked like? The second question is this. So instead of love, what did show up? Always, it is fear that shows up instead of love, but we need to be able to dissect it. What did fear look like in this moment? As that person wounded you, look at the fear that they were experiencing. Look at the fear that they now brought into your life. Look at it from that perspective. And then there's a third question. Love didn't show up, fear showed up instead. How did fear make you feel? So it's not that you felt afraid, but once fear from that other individual showed up, how did it make you feel? You stand in that moment and you remember the feelings of that younger version of yourself. And you say to yourself, this is what fear made me feel like. And then there's a fourth question, and this is perhaps the hardest question to answer, the question of why. But we answer this from a totally different perspective than we are used to. We're not just going to talk about the interaction that we had with that individual. We're going to look at a deeper level at what trauma patterns this individual has. What wounds does this individual have? What are they stuck in? What moment in time did your interaction with them trigger? And what did they return to that caused them to wound you in the way that they did? The wound is not about us. And so we have to look at it for what it truly is. We're not as complicated as we think. Every trauma embeds a coded response in the subconscious mind of every individual on this planet. Triggers show up and we simply respond. It's as simple as that. And the only way we stop this is by moving through a conscious forgiveness process. And what does it mean to be conscious? Again, we remember who we are. We are beings, individuals, spiritual beings who are having a human experience. But these traumas that we endure, they can sometimes cause us to dissociate, separate from that self that we are. And in these moments, we forget who we are and we begin to show ourselves as the fear that we experience, as opposed to the beings, the individual spirits that we are. We are love. And this life journey is teaching us how to love. Every forgiveness gives you a part of the puzzle. How do I love and how do I want to be loved? So you stop focusing on what you feel and the things you cannot change, and you remember who I am. When we move through a conscious forgiveness process, we show the subconscious mind who we are. We show it the codes implanted by the stressful and traumatic moments that altered how we show up. We make a conscious decision to delete those codes and begin to live differently. And when we do this, we can show up as the most powerful and authentic version of ourselves, and we don't have to try. We don't have to try. The triggers, they definitely come again, but suddenly there's a power that we have over it rather than a power that it has over us, and we see that it begins to affect us differently. If you want to end the triggers and control your automatic responses, if you want to stay present, you must master one of those simple and yet complex human actions. You must master conscious, Christ-like forgiveness. If you want to learn how to forgive on a supreme level, visit my website, theartoflettinggo.ca. We all want to forgive, but most of us need a tool to do it. And here on my website, you can learn more about my ultimate forgiveness journal. I've also prepared for you a short presentation that will show you the 5 shifts essential for overcoming your most difficult life experiences. Click the link below and visit me at The Art of Letting Go.